fucked up. I would just use that,
I can change it later if you change your mind.
post production.
It's all good to me. Yeah, it was an interesting test. It didn't work out like I hoped it was going to work out. Um, but I'd like, I know we talk about testing all the time, but we never really show like how we do a test or anything. So
Mhm.
Trying to get YouTube to show the chat. Oh, YouTube. When will you show the chat?
yeah, it was an interesting test. It didn't work out like I.
There we go. All messages. YouTube changed their UI. It's all different right now. I mean, it looks nice, but they move things around.
So we're gonna
All right.
find if you can teach an old dog new tricks.
Yep, I'm saying hello. I'm reminding people to ask questions. And please remember to like and subscribe. It costs you nothing, and it doesn't even bug you unless you hit the notifications too. So you can like and subscribe, and we can't even mark it back to you. Totally free. It doesn't get freer than that. So please remember to subscribe because we're a pretty small YouTube channel. You know, we just hit a great milestone of 7,000 subscribers. And that's a big milestone for us. We're hoping to get to 10,000 this year. That would be a really great thing to achieve. But we can't do it without you. And it's totally free. It just takes a click. Like that's it. You show support with a click. And so if we can't get to 10,000 on something that's free and as low effort as a click, oh, that just breaks my heart. Because, come on, people. Come on. You're busting my balls here. Come on.
We need one of those things like they have on PBS. We need a little goal thing. So it's a thermometer and it's got
I
7,000, 8,000,
I
9,000.
I hate those. It's like, let me interrupt your regular content and we're going to talk a half an hour about how you haven't clicked. So please click so we can stop talking about how you haven't clicked.
SEO Fight Club telethon.
Yeah.
Exactly.
That would
Exactly.
be brutal.
We can do this.
If you want to keep
Yeah,
seeing great content by Ted Kubaitis and Lee Witcher,
yeah,
click
I could
now.
I could see it. Hey guys, we're now down to 5,000 subscribers.
Yep. Yeah, so
All right.
Terry, what's going on in the call center? The phone's ringing or the phone's ringing there? We're having some
There's
technical
muted.
difficulties. Yep. So
It's Super Tuesday, so we've got politicians back here answering the phones.
excellent, sir. Thank you very much.
All right. So we don't have Madge here today, so we're at a disadvantage for answering any of your press release questions. He will be back hopefully next week. But just remember, he is the sponsor for SEO Fight Club. He's one of the 3 press release services I use regularly. So if you're looking for press release options, maybe just reach out to Madge through his website and have a talk with him. Talk about what you need. Talk about what your budget is. Let him know what you're trying to accomplish, and he'll help you figure out a strategy that will have the best chance of success for you. So be sure to check him out, and we'll have him back next week if you have press release questions. Additionally, uh, oops, this is, hang on, SEO spring training is nearly here, and they have sold out their VIP. And if you have any interest in going, them selling out their VIP, that's a very rare thing. That's the most expensive class of tickets they have, and it's sold out in record time. And so that is predictive that this whole event is going to sell out. So if you have any interest at all in going to this event, it might be your last chance before you don't have an option. So you may want to think long and hard today on whether or not you want to pull this trigger, because in a few days, who knows if it'll be there. The other thing is, ignore the tested SEO training. For spring training, there's a coupon code that Terry shared in our Skype group, and there's the URL for purchasing tickets if you want to see the speaking schedule, if you want to ask questions. You're all set right there. So go check it out. Sorry, I put this info on the wrong slide. I was in a hurry this morning. So it's not for tested SEO training, which is already underway. It is for SEO spring training, which if you're not in on it, you're about to miss out on it, because all indications look like it's going to sell out again this year.
Yeah, and
All
it's
right.
not a fake scarcity thing either. The facility that they has a capacity number, so they're managing to that particular number. So it's not like, hey, if 50 more people want to come, sure, come on in, we've got space. There's
Yeah, they can
physical limit.
expand it. The fire marshal won't let them expand it, so that's the law. So yeah, either you're in or you're out, and it's getting down to the wire. So think long and hard today if you want this particular event and expense. So keep that in mind. But we don't even need to pitch this event. This thing's probably going to sell out all on its own. And it's one of the best events of the year. You know, that's why it sells out. That's why the VIP went first, because all the people who had been to it in past years was like, oh, hell no, I'm not missing out on this. And so that's what's happening. All right, so you were warned. Don't feel bad if you're not able to get a ticket later. All right, with that, let me stop my sharing and make it so that Charles can share, because he's going to walk us through an SEO test that he did, and he feels it didn't go so great. And so we're going to kind of look at what he did and kind of dissect the SEO test a bit and talk about it and talk about testing a bit. So what do you think of the topic, Lee?
I always love it, and this is something that it's a good example for people when they do test. Charles is bringing his stuff out here for peer review, so people can poke at it, and that's the best type of test data that you have, is when you bring it out, and other testers can sit there and say, hey, did you consider this? Did you consider that? Is this another possible way of interpreting it? Did you forget to control for keyword density? These kind of things that we all know and love. And it's fun because here on the Zoom chat that we have, everybody here is a tester. So you've got a good panel of people to evaluate and empathize.
And Lee, what do you think about beginning testers who don't get it right?
Well, I'm a professional tester who doesn't get it right. So, that's it happens. There's so many ways to mess up a test, but even when you mess up a test, you can learn things from it. Everybody thinks, oh, you have to have a hypothesis and you have to run the test, and the test has to confirm the hypothesis for you to be successful. You can generate weird things which give you insights into stuff, or you can close off avenues of inquiry, by saying, well, it's not these, the factor doesn't work like that, or this part of the algorithm doesn't work like that. So there's always an opportunity to learn, even if you completely screwed up a test.
And is there only one way to do a test correctly?
No. Now, there's a lot of different ways. There's certain principles involved, but everybody thinks you need a PhD in statistics to be a tester. What you need is the ability to copy and paste. If you can do that, you can test.
Yeah, I concur. All right, I'll let you take it away, Charles.
All right, great. Thank you very much. Let me share my screen. And let me put this in presentation. All right, I'm assuming everybody can see my screen now. I
Yes.
Yeah,
can't
let's
see anybody.
let's just see if you have the requisite skills. You do have the ability to copy and paste, Charles?
Usually, but it's
Usually.
amazing how many times I get that wrong too.
Okay, we'll be on the lookout. Go ahead,
Yeah,
sir.
that's one of my common mistakes. So yeah, so I did a simple, I would consider a simple will it index test, and it didn't really work out the way I wanted it to. And I figured this would be really cool to use as kind of like a case study. Because I know we talk about testing a lot, and a lot of folks, I know I did when I first looked at it, like, oh my God, testing's so hard. And even after doing it a few times, I was always like, oh, testing so much to do. And it's like, yeah, it's a lot of work, but it's not that hard, and it's okay if you mess it up. You just redo it. And actually, this is a test I'm actually redoing right this second because there's a few things I've decided I want to change. And then based on the feedback I get today, I may end up redoing it a third time. And you always end up learning something a little different and a little new, I find at least.
Mhm.
And that's very common. Like on all the tests I ran, especially the bigger ones, I would have to conduct them 3, 4, 5 times before I work out all the kinks. Because you learn as you go, oh, I can't do this because of, A, and I can't do that because of B. And each one of those things usually means a do-over. And so usually to get a good successful test, it usually means you tried multiple times. And it's so common that when I hear testers say that they get 100% of their tests correct and they get definitive outcomes on every test, like they start rattling off every test, they got definitive outcomes, and they never talk about the failure cases or the inconclusives. And I'm like, oh, this doesn't add up. So in a
Yeah.
in a way, failing and having these roadblocks, they're lending to your credibility that you're doing the process.
So that's a really good point, Ted. I don't know if you guys want to share. When I do a test, I'd say like maybe half my tests end up working out the way I expect. At least half of them, give or take, crash and burn in some way, shape, or form. Like I just messed something up horribly,
Yeah.
or I realize I'm not proving what I think I'm proving, or to your point, Lee, you said earlier, like I end up proving keyword density and not proving something else.
Right.
Yeah, that's about right. I'd say my success rate is closer to a third, but I often will go for very lofty things.
Yeah, I mean there are those times if you're saying, I think that there's something to this entity thing, and so I'm going to test you. When you have those, you have a much higher success rate. But if you're sitting there doing some of the things that we've done in the past, where you have this really crazy out there idea, your success rate drops precipitously. But it's good to go and test them and find out, hey, is that boundary there, or does it really work like that, or could this be in play as part of the algorithm? All of those things are fun to swing for, but also you tend to learn things that you weren't testing. So if we're testing something like how far can you push this particular thing, you might learn something completely different from that just based on the way that Google responds to the page.
And
So,
there's actually a category of test where you can do no wrong.
mhm.
There's no failure condition on this category of tests. It is the what does Google do when I do X?
Mhm.
And so there is no right or wrong or, I messed it up. It's I'm going to do X and watch how Google behaves and see if I can learn something. And so that, kind of test, if you're, easily defeated, then that kind of test can keep it positive.
Yeah, and sometimes you have no clue. Like we go back to this one that we did. I don't know, it's about 4 years ago. We were talking one day, and the short thing was we ended up testing a 1,000,000-word blog post. We had no idea what was going to happen, no clue whatsoever. The hypothesis was, oh boy, this is going to be fun. That was the only hypothesis, and so we learned some stuff from that informed future testing, but that was a crazy one. So, that we couldn't even form a hypothesis about how Google would crawl and index and process that much stuff. So,
And one of my most famous tests was a "What will Google do?" test, and that was when the question was, "What will Google do if the keyword you're tuned for changes once per second?" We had no idea what Google would do.
Mm-mm.
And so it was kind of a let's build it and watch. and those are a lot of fun. We learned so much remarkable stuff. Um and there's actually a whole Fight Club episode on that test called the Google time exploit.
Right.
And so yeah, that's that's a whole category of test. If you're worried about not getting an outcome, what will Google do tests always get an outcome.
So I'm assuming from the Will It Index title that you have a particular zone that you were thinking about. Like
I
is the active
def
zone?
I definitely did. Now I'm gonna have to disappoint a few folks here. I'm not going to share the zone. So sorry, folks, but I'm not sharing the zone. But just think in terms of, and actually this was a reverse of a will index. It's will Google really ignore this? So think in terms of like meta keywords or
Mhm.
comments in HTML or maybe a specific div tag or something. I read an article about a month ago, maybe 2 months ago, that implied that Google does not read something within a certain tag. And so I figured, that's interesting. And like most things, when I see these claims, I'm like, let me test it. And I do a lot of that kind of stuff. I love reading these articles and coming up with tests. I'm usually running about a test every other week or so. When I read, John Muir will make a comment or someone will make a comment, I'm like, I wonder if that's true or not. So the premise here is Google ignores any content found within a specific HTML tag. Again, that's not a real tag. So it would have, for example, in this example, you can see here content would count towards SEO. The stuff in the tag would not count towards SEO, and then the rest of the content would count towards an SEO. So
Right.
that's
So
the
in the tag that you're not telling us about, you stuck a special keyword into that particular zone.
Yes. So the test I did, and it was a simple will it rank test. I created 6 pages on my test domain, not sharing my test domain either. Uh, all the pages had unique content, but the same word count. So I used a tool that created 500, 500 word articles. It was just gibberish English, so it wasn't lorem ipsum. It was English, but it was gibberish English, so it wasn't real text.
Mhm.
The title and the meta descriptions, those were unique as well, but they did have the same word count. Now, one of the things I realized at the end of my test is that this is a process I've been using for a while, and it never really occurred to me that while my word count is always the same, my character count is not the same. So I don't know if that's ever a problem or not, but I did realize that at the end of this is that not only is my word count was the same, but my character count could be pretty different, actually. It could be as much as 10, 15% different. I created a unique keyword. I created an optimized content block. Now, what's an optimized content block? It was optimized for the fake keyword. And I'll show you a sample in another slide or so, but I had an H2 with the fake keyword in it. And then there was a bit of content after the H2 that had the fake keyword in 3 times. And again, that content was just gibberish English. I linked to these test pages from my homepage, from my HTML sitemap and an XML sitemap, submitted the XML sitemap via GSC so that Google would find it. And I monitored my logs to see, did Google actually find all the pages and what pages did they not find? A quick aside for everybody. So if you don't know what I mean by fake keyword, I just came up with a keyword. This was not the keyword, but I came up with a keyword, and you should see this result in Google. So Google returns no results. I even try to avoid keywords where Google has these recommendations. So sometimes when you put in a fake keyword, you'll see a line there where Google will say, oh, do you mean this, or this? And it's giving you links to these other search results. I try to avoid those as well, although it's really, really hard. One of the hardest parts I found the testing is finding a fake keyword. I always end up picking a word that I picked words that are actually real words, and that's always funny. But I also pick words that end up being similar enough to other words that Google thinks I'm talking about, something
And
else.
and you
Here's a
have to
tip.
be
Oh, go ahead.
careful. I was going to say you have to be careful on your fake keywords because there's also another state called the switcheroo, where Google will see your test keyword and just autocorrect it to a different search term and show you those results, and it says showing instead automatically. It doesn't even do the did you mean? It
Yeah.
just trades your keyword for a different one.
Yeah.
I was going to
Yeah.
say, Charles, one of the tips that we've used is I'm looking at your keyword here. It's kind of fun, but I don't use vowels because vowels have a higher tendency to trigger the did you means. And so,
It's interesting you should say that because I'll just go in whenever I have trouble with a keyword, I'll go in and remove vowels. But I don't always remove, and so I think we've talked about things like this. I never remove them all. Why don't I remove them all? I don't know. I just never remove them all. I just keep removing them until I get a
It's
result I like.
yeah, it's hard to remove the psychology from
Yeah.
the test.
I also never put numbers in my fake keyword. I realize theoretically I should be able to without a problem. I just don't. Again, Ted, it's a psychology. Numbers don't go in words, so I don't like putting numbers in my
Yeah,
words.
just remember, Maroon 5 is a keyword.
Indeed. Yeah, no, you're right. You're right. Um,
yeah,
so
see, that's all. It is a funny thing because it's like, I'm okay with fake keywords, but that keyword's just too fake.
yeah,
It's like,
exactly.
okay, so what are we talking about here?
Well, no word doesn't have any vowels, so I have to keep a word in my, a vowel in my word. But so that's that psychology. I just there's certain things I have trouble breaking habits.
I I did my research because when you didn't want to reveal the zone, I instantly thought what zone would be that contentious. And so now I have my theory on the zone. And not only do I think it's one you probably don't want to share, but it's one that would be hard to share.
It's actually I don't know how contentious or how secretive it is. I just decided I didn't feel like sharing that part.
Okay.
But happy to chat about it later
Yeah,
So,
I'll tell you my theory after the show.
for sure.
so what you're telling us
Yes.
is you're not going to show us your domain, you're not going to show us your keyword, you're not going to tell us the zone, but we're going to trust you, right?
Well, I guess if I was lying, I wouldn't say that I've failed, I've messed it up. I guess if I was lying, I think it worked perfectly and I know everything I need to know now.
Okay,
And
good to
well,
know.
what's totally interesting about this kind of test is responsible for us discovering a new kind of Google update.
Mhm.
And most of the SEO world, they don't sit down and think about kinds of updates. And the update you're actually testing, we call a Google zoning update, where Google is changing the zoning laws of what part of the page is in play and what parts of the page are out of play. For example, meta keywords is a zone of the page that is out of play. You can put an imaginary test keyword and a meta keywords tag, and Google will not index that. It will not be findable once the page is findable. And so that's how we test these zoning updates, and we can look back over time and go, oh, Google took this part out of play, and now this part is back in play. And so this type of testing is amazing for understanding Google's zoning laws.
But it's not just that. I'll mention this to a friend the other day. I was doing some research on Bing's algorithm, and I came across an article where somebody made the contention that while Google ignores meta keywords, Bing uses meta keywords as a spam indicator and will de-index your page for having it. And I was
I
like, wow,
doubt that.
well, I did too, but I mentioned it to someone, and they reached out to me later in the day because they were doing some research and said, "No, I found several. Here's examples of stuff that's ranking well and Bing has the meta keywords thing." So it's something sometimes that you can just go verify a claim just by looking at a SERP.
Yeah, and that's why I had doubts, because I've tested that even recently, and I saw that there were many massive scale online retailers and enterprises that still use meta keywords.
Mhm.
And largely, I think it's out of a desire to have organized SEO where the goals are on page for people to understand and know. It doesn't always have to be about ranking boost, it can be about workflow.
Mhm.
And people don't get that. And my testing I did a test too. It's trying to see if I could rank a page with meta keywords. And will it index in the meta keywords? And the answer was no.
Still,
And
yeah.
so is that a failed test? No, I got a definitive outcome. But I also learned in it that Google isn't punishing meta keywords. So it's not like my pages wouldn't appear in search because I had a meta keywords. Google just didn't give a crap.
I was talking to somebody a while back. It may have been you, Charles. Did you and I have this conversation where you talked about how some larger organizations use that meta keywords to
I,
manage
I,
site search?
yeah, I was just going to say when I was with Verizon, they had meta keywords, and we probably still do, and that was used in our site search, our internal site search. So when I hear that meta keywords is going to hurt a site, I always think back, I'm not so sure about that because I have field data. Haven't tested it, but I do have field data that suggests otherwise.
Yeah,
Right.
I agree with the field data. I have tested it. It's harmless.
Yeah. Go ahead, Charles.
I also know, I was going to say, just to close the loop on the meta, I also did a test. This is several years ago, so it definitely could be different now. This at least 4 years ago, where I did a test to see will it index, and I did several tags. And this was an interesting one where I was checking, like, I think it was like the Twitter tag and an OG tag. I can't remember all the tags, but none of them worked. And I realized they were all within meta tags. And so it started to make me wonder, I wonder if Google ignores all meta tags. So I ran a few other tests and got some interesting results on that. But so it's not, I don't think it's just meta keywords that Google ignores. I think Google ignores, or at least it was ignoring all the meta tags. But
Yeah,
total aside.
historically on the zoning, I can corroborate that. Historically on the zoning, meta keywords has been both in and out of play. And so we can actually see the zoning laws. We can empirically test them.
Yeah.
And yeah, and all the other ones, you're right, they were all out of play.
So, for those of you at home watching this geekery on the sidelines, there's an important principle at play here, which is that testers talk with other testers and, share and corroborate stuff back and forth, and also inform future tests just by, discussing them like Charles is doing here today. You just see a lot of back and forth. And the more testers you get in a group, the more information just flies around. So, know and love your testers, people. Continue, Charles.
So here was an example of one of the tests. So I had 3 pages with the tag, and so I had a head section. It was all generic, but it did have a unique title and meta description. Had some unique text, so I did an H1, a little bit of copy below it. Then I had my fake keyword in H2, and then I had my text with the fake keyword in, I think it was 3 times. And then I had a little bit more, another fake P tag and another fake H2 with some unique text. And again, this kind of goes back to, why do we do the things we do? To me, this looks like a real page. It looks like a real page with real content. Do I have to make it this complicated? Probably not. But so the odd number page had the tag, and the even number pages did not have the tag. So this one, you can see that the fake keyword was in the tag, and in the even number, or the odd number pages, the fake keyword was just there. So what should happen is when I do a search for this keyword, the 3 odd number pages should show up and the 3 even number pages should not show up. The reason I did 3 and 3 is I figured if I just did 1 or 2, that could just be purely random. If I did 3 and all 3 showed up, or all 3 did not show up, that was a little bit better of a signal for me.
All right, so right off the bat, I'm a little triggered in this.
I'm
And
going after it too. You first.
I'm a massive nitpicker, so this is an amazing nitpick. Like Clint Butler would be giving me no end of grief for having this nitpick. So just know that Clint's probably on your side on this. But with the headings and with the paragraph tags, these I consider fairly shared anvils. They're kind of powerful tags historically, and we know that fairly shared factors can spoil tests when they're 4 weak signals. Now, I know you're trying to test for the inverse case. You're trying to see if this tag will make the fake keyword not appear. but there's a possible outcome you're neglecting, that this tag could be a beneficial factor, even a weak beneficial factor. We don't know how it's going to end. And so with that possibility, you could be spoiling that outcome from coming to the surface by having fairly shared anvils. So for people who are not testers, what is this fairly shared factors thing? Imagine, if you will, you had 5 scales, all right? And on each scale, you fairly share a heavy anvil. They each have 1 anvil on the scale. Now the test is using the weights, figure out which scale has a single feather on it. And what you've effectively done is you've washed out the weight of the feather in the margin of error of the fairly shared anvils. You can no longer test for feathers, even though the scales were rated for being able to measure feathers. So fairly shared anvils can spoil a test. And keywords in URL, keywords in title, keywords in headings, keywords in paragraph tags, we often consider those fairly shared anvils. Now, with weight, that's one thing, but we're talking about SEO, Ted. How is there a margin of error for these weak signals to get lost in SEO? We know that when Google sees a tie condition in search, that you will randomly flip-flop with the web pages you're in a tie state with. And so when you control all of your variables and then search for your blank test pages, each time you search, you get a random outcome of your test pages. That's how we know that you've isolated all of your variables. All right. And that random outcome is because every time you search, you get a tiny percentage of your overall ranking score, a random amount of it is a fair tiebreaker. And that's how Google fairly breaks ties. But since it's a tiny percentage of your overall score, having fairly shared anchors or anvils makes that tiny percentage of overall score get bigger. There's more margin of error to lose weak signals you're testing for.
So
And
in this
so
I'm sorry, I was just saying, in this example, what is the anvil then? Because that's
the
The
H2
tags.
tag.
Yeah.
so so you're saying the H2 tag, that could be overwhelming the
Yeah,
tag that's
because
supposed to be
if
ignoring it. Okay.
yeah, if the tag you're testing is a sufficiently weak signal, you have a fairly strong anvil with your keyword in it, and the margin of error on that anvil could wipe out your outcome data on a
Well,
weak signal.
so you just told me I'm definitely doing a test number 3.
Yes.
Because my test number 2 has got the same problem
Yeah,
with it.
now this problem, this way of spoiling tests, it only spoils very faint signals. So if there's a possibility that this thing you're testing is a very faint signal, you could be washing it out by having the fairly shared anvils.
So in your example, you're suggesting I shouldn't even use a P tag then. I should just have
Yeah, is it necessary? And
no.
can you just
Yeah,
remove those?
I sure could. Yeah, the only reason I did it is because that's what a page would look like in my mind. So
Yes.
yeah, I could take. There's no reason why that P tag or the H2 has to be there.
But here's
Yeah.
the thing, even your unique text outside of the tag you're testing, the H1, the H2s there, that unique text that's there could potentially have some SEO value, even a faint SEO value, which can also, tip it. And those are powerful zones. So, unless you're absolutely certain, like it's all stop words or something like that, I would eliminate those from the pages in general. So the only thing you're left with is your, fake keyword inside of that tag that you're testing. It either reads it or it doesn't. And there's nothing else for it to grab onto. So you've basically got a page that's a featherweight, and now you're testing this particular thing. Even if it's a feather, it's going to double the weight of the page, and it's gonna pop. But if you've got all these other pieces there, you're introducing the potential that you're going to get lost in the noise.
So then would you suggest that the way it should look is that the page with the tag should simply have the fake keyword in the tag, and then the other pages will simply have the fake keyword, and then that's it. No, no other text, no P tags, no H1s, no nothing else, just the fake keyword inside the tag and the fake keyword not inside the tag, and that's it.
Yeah, but you do need the gibberish text around it, because we tend to find that without sufficient word count on a page, Google thinks it's an error page and won't work with it.
Yeah.
But I wouldn't want to have that gibberish text inside of any kind of P tags or anything
Not
like that.
inside the test zone, just on the page.
Yeah.
Okay, so like this, but I would take out the H1 and the H2 that are outside of the tag, and the H2 inside the tag.
Yeah, I'd leave all the text the same. I'd remove the headings and paragraph tags. And
Okay.
I'd take the tag you're testing and only around the keyword.
Okay, interesting. Cool.
Yeah, because then Google has nothing else to evaluate except this.
Right. So you're saying this H2 could have been overwhelming the tag. So
Yeah.
the tag could work perfectly, but it's like you said, it's a featherweight. It's not.
Yeah,
yeah.
I've gotten tests in the past that had random and inconclusive outcomes, and then when I removed the heading treatments, I was able to get definitive outcomes.
Interesting.
And so I've seen it ruin tests before.
Interesting. So
you find factors that they're weak factors, kind of like, bolding, a keyword or something like that. It's a factor. I wouldn't go and redo all my pages so that the keyword is bolded on all of them. That's a lot of work for, what is a minor impact, but it's a factor. So if you've got something like that with your tag test, you're never going to read it with, or potentially not going to read it with the design, unless it's just a huge home run of a factor.
Right. And honestly, that's for practical purposes. While I still want to find this out, for practical purposes, if it is such a weak factor that I can't do anything else inside that tag, in my mind, it's not a factor. Like, it's not a practical factor. It's not something I could utilize in a site, because I couldn't put stuff inside of there knowing that it could potentially overwhelm the tag.
Mm-hmm.
Interesting. Oh yeah, so here are the observations I had. So this is what I observed over the past week. It's actually over the past couple weeks. Google crawled most but not all the pages, and that's something I always end up running into, that Google never hits all of my pages. For example, it never hit page number 1 of the 6-page set. It did hit everything else. The site colon command showed different pages almost daily. So when I would run a site colon command on that directory, sometimes I'd get 4 of the pages, sometimes 5, sometimes just 2. Never number 1, so far as I could tell with my log files. Google never even hit number 1 for whatever reason. The even number pages, the one with the magic tag, jumped in and out of ranking. The pages 3 and 5, that's the one without the magic tag, they ranked consistently. The daily rankings weren't consistent. Things jumped in and out, which suggests, Ted, that maybe we are dealing with a lighter weight a factor like you were talking about earlier.
Were these all on the same domain name?
They were all in the same domain name in the same directory, yes. So I made a unique directory. I should have clarified that. I made a unique directory with all 6 pages.
Yeah, because what I often like to do is I like to spread each test page out on a different domain. And there are pros and cons of doing that. Obviously, it's more expensive and more difficult to work with. But on the pro side, it gets around the 1 to 2 results per domain filtering that Google has.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's kind of easier to test in that regard when you can get all your tests indexed. Yeah, I had some other thoughts on this. It's interesting that there's a vibe that you may have fairly shared anvils here for sure.
What I found most interesting is that the rankings, and even the site, when I run the rankings and or the site colon command, I did it usually once a day. It was always very inconsistent. Different pages were popping in and out of the index. different pages were popping in and out of being ranked. When I say index, I mean like the site colon command, doing the site colon and just seeing it in the index, and rankings. And when I say rankings, I mean I would put the keyword in and see what shows up, see what Google ranks for the keyword. Ultimately, I found both odd and even pages ranked. I never found a situation where only one type of page ranked and one type of page did not rank. It did not seem to be very consistent. I should have made a graph or a chart. I didn't think about that until it was all done.
No, it's okay, because here's the thing. You've got there's two general possibilities that explain that. One is that you've got a very weak factor, and you can't tell because it's going around because or it's not a factor, or it's you're looking at the volatility of the anvils, and it may be a factor, but you just can't see it in the the noise you put in. But the fact that you actually have it moving around means there was a degree of equality to the page. We just don't know whether the equality was the heading tags, the bigger zones, or your test was set up absolutely perfectly and it's just bouncing all around. It's just random.
Right. Two thoughts come to mind. So to piggyback on what Lee just said there, the most difficult signal you can possibly measure is no signal at all, and it's maddening.
And that's essentially what I was trying to do. I was trying to say, is this not a signal? Is this not help in any way, shape, or form?
Yeah, because we will see patterns all day long when there are none there, when it's just random. And the other thing is, when I tested meta keywords most recently, this was like within the past 2 weeks I did this test. I noticed on my first iteration of testing that the order in which I indexed the test pages influenced the outcome of the result. So I ultimately had a test case that was Google does not use meta keywords, and the hardest signal to measure is no signal at all. And the order in which you index things when there is no signal can look like signal. So I would also recommend, when you redo this, that you index your pages in an order where the outcome you're trying to check for would have to defy the order in which they were indexed. And that way you could say it is not the order. We didn't accidentally test for the order of indexation. Because if you think about it, the first one that gets indexed, it's older in Google's database. It might be older by minutes or hours, but older is older when you're sorting data.
Right.
And so if Google has any consideration for how long has it been in my database, then that order can be a corrupting factor. So you should submit them in a way that the outcomes you're looking for would defy the indexation order.
That's a really good point. I thought I was solving that by doing every other page, but you're absolutely right. I am not really controlling the order that it was indexed. I have no idea the order that was indexed. So that's interesting. Yeah, that's a good point.
Charles, I think you should consider this test a success, because success is one of those words in the English language where we each get to define it for ourselves. And in my mind, a successful test is one that leads me to further knowledge. And already you've learned some things just from feedback on the test. That makes it a successful test. And hopefully it leads to a additionally successful test on that information.
So no, thank you very much, Terry. So I actually was speaking to a developer here at my organization about this tag, asking him some questions when I was all done, and he told me I was using the tag wrong. So I've redone this test because apparently I was using the tag completely wrong. So that's a little postscript to this whole thing, that I may have just messed up my whole test because I didn't know how to code. So there could be going on as well. So, but in addition to, I realized that I've the whole anvil and I'll have to adjust that So to make sure I understand you, I should do, and you guys can still see my screen, correct?
Yes.
Yep.
I should do this, just the fake keyword sitting a tag, and you're also suggesting I get rid of.
Well, you can leave the text, just get rid of the tags.
Yeah.
Get rid of the H1.
Right, I want to get rid of the H1, so the text could stay there
Yeah.
if I want to. But it's
Yeah,
okay, I
exactly.
keep the P tags, though. You don't see any
I
problems with
would
that, or-
even remove those because we don't really need it. I suppose if you wanted to put BR tags for formatting, that's fine.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So the page should look like this. Okay, I like that. That's and that's
You get rid of the head. I mean, you have to have a title, but you don't need a meta description either.
okay. So now in my generic head, I usually have canonical tags. I threw a couple things in there usually, just because it's, you know, habit. Should I just have everything, you know, just what's required for the HTML to be considered renderable or acceptable?
Less is more, but it means you have to do more iterations because you have to get it indexed. So you're trying to find the minimum amount of framing you need in order to get a test page indexed. And so that's going to cause you to have to repeat this test 3 or 4 times.
Interesting. Okay, cool.
Hey, can I ask a question
Fire away.
of Charles?
Fire away, Carolyn.
Hey,
Hi.
hi, one of the things that you were checking, did you ever look to see if any of them were in the cache?
No, didn't even consider that. I like that. That's a really good point. I hadn't even didn't even consider it. And I'll tell you what else I didn't do. I didn't even do something simple like go into the Google search console and do an inspect tool just to see what it shows me. Didn't even consider that either.
Yeah,
But
I'd
that's
be
a good
very
idea.
curious to see what happens in these next tests. That's pretty cool.
So are we proving that enterprise guys don't know how to SEO an individual page in the real world? Is that the test that's going on here?
I think so. I think we just proved another hypothesis that we weren't testing for.
Yeah. Well, I think the thing, and I know Charles wanted to do this, but this is an example of, again, the purpose of this wasn't to shred Charles in any way, shape, or form, and I don't think he felt that way. It's just a matter of yeah, it's a bonus. Yeah, I agree with you. It's a bonus.
It's a happy coincidence.
So, I think that's the way that, when you're looking at something, when we're here looking for the knowledge, does this thing work, or does it work in a particular way, or does Google utilize, this particular thing? You have to have that inquiry. You have to be able to know, what are the things that can mess up your test? What are some things, some other ways of evaluating this? Even if you have a clear signal, sometimes the clear signal can be interpreted different ways. So now you have to restructure the test to figure out, does it mean this or does it mean that? We know it's a signal, but a signal of what? Those kind of things are there. So, I want people to know at home. You don't just sit there and hide your tests and keep them all secret. It's better if you bring them out and have, other people give them the once over, because you do get that sort of feedback that helps inform your next test and your next test, and that builds up just a body of knowledge.
And because I've seen your process and your methodology and your iterations, I'm going to have a lot more faith in your results. So your credibility just went a big step up, and that's a worthy outcome even of a failed test.
So am I wrong to think, so coming out of this test, I still felt like, I got to rerun it, and I messed a few things up, and then I found out I even used the darn tag wrong. So regardless of what it came up to, as I did the tag wrong.
That's part of the process. I do it all the time.
Assuming that I did the tags right, and is it fair for me to come away and say, I'm not sure this is a no index zone?
Inconclusives are the most common outcome. I don't know if I learned anything at all.
Yeah, like I'm walking away saying, I don't think the article that I read implied that, oh yeah, this you put something in here, Google doesn't even read it. I'm not so sure that's even true, but it is worth investigating a little bit more.
Well, I think you will definitively find if Google is going to index it or not. The great thing about the will it index style test is you almost always get a definitive answer. Either the keyword is findable or it is not. And so if you do it correctly, you should get a definitive outcome. The other problem with what you're doing here, I think we might have been derailed somewhat because you structured your will it index test as a will it boost test. And you failed on the will it boost, trying to get it to rank above other things, which might not have been necessary at all.
Yeah,
Like that
it's
could
just
have
been the
all been
three odds.
overcomplication. So you could have done this with one test page, put the keyword in the tag, and is it findable or not? And then
I'll
you
launch
can
that one
repeat
tonight.
that test multiple times with different keywords. So each of your 10 pages could have been 10 different keywords in the tag in question. If any of them are findable, you've disproved that Google isn't using it.
See, I like that a lot because it's simple. I think, and hopefully everybody else is thinking that, oh my God, doing all this testing is complicated. Because that's a great point. Just do one page. Everybody has a site, or hopefully everybody listening to this has at least a site where they could throw one page on and do a quick test. And it's not the end all be all, but it's a good way. Just here's my initial thought. Here's my initial try.
And
Yeah, it's a beautiful thing
technically,
about. I was going to say, it's
I
a
was
beautiful
going to
thing
say,
about will it index tests is you can do those with one page. Will it boost? You do require multiple because you have to compare, and that's a whole different question that you're asking at that point. Go ahead, Ted. I'm sorry.
oh, and I was going to say it's really hard to spoil a true will it index test. You can go to an already ranking page that's already indexed, and you can update it with a test keyword in the tag and a test keyword in a hidden div. And once the hidden div one is findable, then you search for the one in the test one and see if it's findable. Google processed the page because the hidden div test keyword is findable, but your will it index zone one isn't. Now you have an outcome on a single page and you can't spoil it because it's just a will it index test.
So you touched on something that I did for a brief period of time. So one of the problems I had several years ago with testing was getting pages indexed. And I remember you guys talking a lot about that here. And so I took a site that I had, some of you know the site I'm talking about, that ranked fine, had a couple pages, didn't really care about it, wasn't trying to do it to make money. And I would do little tests. I would use it to do tests on because I knew that page was being crawled regularly and ranked and whatnot. I've since stopped because I'm trying to do other things with that site now. I'm not trying I don't want it to be a test site anymore. I want it to be a real site. But so that was something I was going to bring up. Is it worth creating a site that's a real site for all intents and purposes, and you use that purely as your test, as opposed to doing test pages, as opposed to having a test site with test pages? I realize there's more variables now, but then you at least get past this. Is Google crawling this page and indexing this page?
Yeah, for will it index, it could be any page, any site, as long as it's indexed. So that would totally work for the will it index style. Once you get to will it boost, now you're in problem country.
Yeah, but even with the will it boost, if you have a test site like a blog, and you have one of your pages and it ranks, but it ranks number 68 for a particular keyword. Well, if you found a zone or something that you think boosts it, you can go try to boost that particular thing. And if it moves from 68 to 35, it's not like you're in the money, but it's not going to move 30 positions unless you have something that will actually have the strength to move it like that. But if you have something that's ranking on page 1, position 4, now you're in competition with some heavy hitters. So even if your zone pushes, it may not be enough push to move it up. But moving it from 60 something to 30 something, that's a perfect use for a live blog. If you want to test in the field, some of the findings that you have and see how does it perform outside of the lab, that's a great way of doing it.
Yeah, no, it's a good point. That number 4 position would be, that goes back to that anvil and feather that Ted was talking about. That I may have a feather, but I'll never know because
Yeah.
a feather is not moving you from 4 to 2 or 4 to 3 even.
Usually,
Yeah.
yeah.
At the end of the day, I think the big mistake in your test is you set it up for will it boost, and that was overkill.
Yeah, that's a really good point.
You worked too hard, Charles. You
I
worked
did.
too hard.
Well, and you know, it's there's a lot of it's fun to think of all the weird, just like psychology that comes. Like I have to put vowels in my words, in my test words. My fake pretend with no intention of being real words. I have to put vowels in them. I have trouble not having any vowels. I also don't put numbers in them because there are no numbers in words, and I know
Yeah.
it doesn't matter.
Carolyn,
We have
honey.
those assumptions,
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah.
and we have to challenge and test our assumptions.
Yep.
And
Carolyn,
it's
honey,
crazy.
Ted, Terry, and I will have a little intervention with you. We'll all gather around and say, "It's okay, Charles. It's okay. Remove the last vowel. It'll be fine."
I,
Yeah.
like, go ahead, put a number there. No, I can't. I can't do it. No, put a number in. No, I can't.
Now I
Yeah,
know what to
put a-
get you for Christmas.
Put the number. Everybody claps.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There you
Yeah.
go.
We've all walked that stretch of road. And
Yeah.
so that's the thing. That's the journey. Like, you know, we're all on the same journey. We're just at different points on the exact same journey. And we've learned those lessons. We've made those mistakes. And honestly, seeing you do it just lends credibility because that's
Yeah.
evidence that you're doing the process, and that means a lot.
Well, this makes me also think, and this is a good thing, although it's daunting. Now I want to go back and look at some of my old tests I've run where I thought I got a result. Maybe I didn't get a result. Maybe I thought I got a result and I really didn't get I got a positive, but it was a false positive. So there's a few things there's a few tests I'm already thinking about in my mind that I think I want to go back and look at again. I might even rerun them and structure them a little differently.
That's why you have to rerun them multiple times. Because
Yeah.
even in an example where you have something you think moves the needle and you've got a page that's ranked, 68, and you go put that test keyword in there, or test zone or whatever it is, and it moves up from 68 to 35, you're like, oh my God, I found a factor. I'm like, did you? Or was it just a freshness thing? You just updated the blog page and the freshness is what moved you up. It has nothing to do with what you put on the, so there's those kind of things that come into play as well, where it becomes, when you get down to that level, it's hard to control for everything without doing a volume of the same thing, like 10 times.
Yeah.
And seeing how it did in aggregate.
Yeah.
And there are literally, 10 testers I know of that do this detail of testing and care about the process this much. So I, for one, welcome you to the club because there's not enough testers in the world that are actively doing this on the regular. So yeah, if you're joining the ranks of testing, welcome.
I'll tell you the hardest thing I found about testing over the last couple of years is documenting everything. Because I can tell you how many times I tested stuff, and then I'll go back maybe 4 or 5, 6 months later and be like, wait, why did I do that? What exactly did I do? What happened? And then I've gotten to the point where I have this huge structure I go through. And like, okay, I got to do this, and I do my hypothesis, I do my test, and then every time I do, I'm like, oh, I should add this in there too. Oh, I should make sure I document this because it's so easy to forget. And then you think you did something, and I'm not even sure if I did my test right.
But an
make
abbreviated
a questionnaire.
An abbreviated version of today. We've done this. All of us have done this multiple times. Where you sit there, like, I'll show and say, here's a test that I did, and here's the result that I got. And somebody like Terry will go, did you think about this? And you're like, shit. And then you
didn't even think, yep.
No, I didn't, Terry. Thank you for asking. That's how you move it forward. That is the process.
Yeah. But it can also expose other things too. I've had tests where I've done something, I'm like, that failed miserably, but I did learn something. I realized that freshness was really important to Google because I messed up and I kept making my pages fresh and I didn't realize it. Because every time I changed a page, it started ranking well. And I thought I came across a ranking factor, and I realized, no, I came across freshness, which I kind of knew, but it was nice to see in action. So
yeah, I used to do, some of the little things to try to control for that is, some pages I would do the SEO thing that I thought was working. And on similar pages, I would just go in and add a second period to the last paragraph, which is not a ranking factor, but it
Yeah.
does impact the freshness. So you could just
Yeah.
see if both of them moved, or if it was just the one with the SEO thing.
All right, let's
Cool.
see if we can do a few questions here. Let's see. My client wants to stop building links since we are not seeing ranking changes after 6 months. What can I tell him to convince him to continue building backlinks? Well, I don't know without data if that's a good idea, because maybe you guys are already number one for backlinks and you can't get more number one than number one. So you might be spinning your wheels. I largely compete on referring domains, and I often beat big back numbers only competing on referring domains. So, I'd really like to see the data on this one. Another thing is there's a web spam algorithm out there called MC4, and Google might be using it. They might be using something similar to it. The interesting evidence about it is that the remedies for MC4 appear to work. So, if the remedies appear to work, that's pretty good evidence that there's a problem like that problem in play. And so in that algorithm, it says if you exploit a minority of factors, that the algorithm should ignore those factors just for your page only. And so the way it plays out is you say, I'm going to build some backlinks. And Google says, I'll give you a ranking boost for that. And then you're like, I'm going to build some more backlinks. And then Google says, I'll give you a little more for that. And then you're like, I'm the best SEO ever. I'm going to build some backlinks. And the algorithm says, hey, wait a second. You're just doing the same thing over and over again. I'm not going to give you any more score for that. And then you come back and you say, I'm going to build 50,000 backlinks because if it stopped working, 50,000 will get it moving again. And then the algorithm says, you know what? I'm just not going to give you score for backlinks. And when you don't get score for backlinks, what happens? You fall out of search. And then you go to SEO Signals Lab and you tell people what you did, and they say 50,000 backlinks was a dumb number of backlinks. And it's not. As evidence, I give you all the websites that have more than 50,000 backlinks. It was never about the number, it was always about how you did it. And they'll say that you're penalized, you're over optimized, you need to disavow all your backlinks, you need to do link removal requests, you need to detune your pages, you need to prune your content, and you need to prune your pages. And all of those remedies are the exact wrong thing to do for an MC4 algorithmic demotion. I'm not saying never do them, but don't do those first. No. To fix this problem, you need to think about that algorithm. If you exploit a minority of factors, don't exploit a minority of factors, because it turns out if you exploit all the factors, you just rank well. All right, that's the secret. I said the quiet part out loud. All right, so stop being a one-trick pony. Think about what you're neglecting. Because when you diversify your ranking signals, you'll get full credit for your backlinks. While you're a one-trick pony only doing backlinks, you're not going to get full credit for your backlinks. And investing more in backlinks when you're stuck. And this is the most common problem in SEO. And I'm going to prove it's the most common problem in SEO, because in every SEO agency, this problem comes walking in the door. It's the most commonly heard story in all of SEO. Let me ask you this. How often have you heard or experienced it firsthand, something like this? Hey, yeah, we used to have an SEO. It was working great for a while, Then it kind of all stopped working. And so we had to let that SEO go. And now we're here talking to you. Sound familiar? It is the most common problem in SEO. And there's a way to fix it, because when I hear that, I'm like, okay, and Cora, I need to do phase 3 and 4 to get them unstuck. Then we can go back to 1 and 2 and send them to the moon. And you know what happens? Think about the last 2 weeks that SEO had before he got fired. Everything he was doing to throw stuff at the wall to get that website to move an inch. And when the next SEO that understands how to get it unstuck gets in there, what happens? So, well, they diversify the signals, and what happens to that page? It shoots to the moon because of all that SEO that the last guy did in the last 2 weeks. The next SEO who knows how to get it unstuck gets all the credit. And it's changed the way we look at SEO. Fundamentally, it changes the way. I no longer go places and say, oh, that's bad SEO. I don't point at the last SEO and say that's bad SEO, because it's not. Those last 2 weeks they did were good SEO in the wrong place. It wasn't where it was needed. But it wasn't bad. It was all beneficial. And you can get benefit out of it by putting the right things in the right places where they're needed. And so what we come to find is that bad SEO is remarkably hard to find in actuality. And what you're actually encountering is incomplete SEO. And your client is frustrated because you're getting the results of incomplete SEO and you're doubling down on the incompleteness. So you need to think about what you've been neglecting in SEO and pull those levers instead. What do you think, Lee?
Yeah, 100%. I tell people this story. There's a cartoon that I saw years ago that had mailman was delivering a package at the door. The guy that opened the door to receive the package was a bodybuilder, big, shoulders and, V cut, big arms and everything else, but his legs were pencils. And the caption underneath was, oh, thank God that leg course arrived. And I tell that to people because as SEOs, we like to do the things we like to do. This guy's not losing competitions because he didn't do enough bench presses. He just skipped leg day. And you have to look at what is missing. It's not that bench presses are bad, for building you up, but you got to have all of the particular factors. So when I hear, hey, we're building links and it's not working yet, I'm like, okay, well, you're pushing the wrong lever then, because something is working there. So maybe it's your on page, maybe you have a little technical problem that you're not aware of. There's all sorts of different things. So I would echo that. Look where you're not looking, because we all have the favorite levers we like to pull. Oh, I like to look at this. I like to look at that. But sometimes that's not the thing that's needed. So go find the thing that you are at a biggest competitive disadvantage. Look at Quora. If everybody in the top, however many people are ranking above you, if they all have schema and you don't, I'd consider schema. If they all have 5,000 words and you've got 500, I'd consider upping your word count. If they all have 10,000 links and you've got 10 links, I'd consider a link building campaign. What is the major difference between you and them, and start addressing that deficit. And if you're pretty good across the board, I'd start looking at technical stuff.
What do you think, Charles?
I don't know if I can add really that much more to this. The one thing I have said I've seen, I was doing a test with dates a couple years ago, and I was trying to prove or disprove whether having a newer date on your content makes you rank better. And I accidentally put the wrong date. I put a future date in. I just flipped like the 3 and the 4 or something like that. And what I noticed was that article dropped to the bottom of the ranking. So it was I was trying to test for power, and it dropped right to the bottom almost immediately. And I thought to myself, oh my God, negative dates, future dates is a negative ranking factor. That was the first thing I thought. And then it occurred to me, maybe Google just knows it's not a valid date, and it was ignored as a factor. And it started getting me down the thought process of Google ignores, they filter things. They don't penalize. We, as SEOs, we always think Google penalizes things. And I think they're just simply filtering. And I say that because as soon as I fixed the date, it shot right back into the rankings. If it was a penalty, wouldn't it last for a while? Wouldn't it be some punishment? Would it? And I've run a few different variations that to try to see exactly what was happening. And it looks like Google, when it sees something it doesn't like, it just filters it out because it doesn't trust it. It knows it's going to mess up its calculations.
So January 78th is not a good date.
So that's funny talking about like things that didn't even try that. I hadn't even thought of that actually. So I'm gonna have to now. Thanks a lot, Lee. Now I got some more work to do.
Anytime.
Be funny
All
if
right.
that worked though.
Next question. How do I get free backlinks to my pages at scale? All right. So that at scale kind of changes the advice. So that's the trick part of the inquiry. So typically what you're asking there is, how do I go viral in a way where people link to me? And so there are books on viral marketing and viral phenomenons. There are people who study past viral events, and you know, that's kind of the road you need to go down, is understanding that type of, you know, viral marketing. So I would recommend you hit the literature, because that's going to create the foundation upon which your brilliant ideas will come from. But in a nutshell, kind of the way virals work is, you say something like, if I get 1,000,000 clicks on this button, I'm gonna donate $1,000 to charity. And the rules are, it can't be bots. I'm going to filter anything that looks like bot traffic. If it looks like real people click the button, those are what I'm counting. And so let your friends know. And if this works, I will do it again. I will let it ride, and we'll keep doing it and raising money for said cause. And so that's one of the ways that you get people going out there saying, hey, everybody, tell your friends to click this button. If it hits a goal, it raises money for a cause. You know, that's a type of viral. Another way to get a viral is to be nonsensical. So if you go to SEOtoollab.com, go all the way down to the bottom of the page and look at my GDPR disclosure statement. All right. That gets about 3 or 4 virals a year all by itself. I took a pointless, stupid thing on my website and I turned it into a viral marketing event. And you're free to steal that. I don't know if it's legal or not, so run it past your lawyer. But you know, I took something stupid and I turned it into a viral, where every now and then in some Facebook group, or, you know, somebody says, hey, check this out. This is hilarious. You know, that's another way to do a viral. And those you need to have something that goes viral. And some businesses, they get the viral for free. When you have a killer PC game that's free, the download link goes viral automatically. And so if you have something that goes viral automatically, put your ad and offer on the download page. It's going viral. Why aren't you leveraging it? So look for the free virals you already have. And then once you have free virals, figure out ways to make new free virals. Well, here's an add-on or a plugin or something like that. It has its own download page, and if it gets popular, it'll go viral on its own. Now you have 2 sources of virals. So, you know, you got to read the books. They'll give you many, many, many more ideas on how to create viral events. What do you think, Lee?
I agree. I mean, the only other thing that, and I'm being a little facetious here, is, you know, you buy a massive authority site and just publish a piece of content and you get all those massive backlinks for free. You know, there's a weight that goes along to it. But if you're starting, and I'm assuming the person is starting with a smaller site or a newer site, stuff like that, then viral marketing is is pretty much the only way you can go. And it's hit or miss even for people that specialize in that. So
Yeah, there's a lot of failure in it, but sometimes it only takes one success. So
yeah.
that's the goal of it. And typically when you need to turn to this viral style of marketing, I think it can be beneficial for new websites, especially to make a splash. But typically you have no choice but the viral at about historically page rank 6 or 7, at which point, manually link building 25,000 links does nothing. So once you hit that plateau where I can't even do 25,000 new links, it just won't move the needle. Well, now you need viral events, right? And then beyond that, once you outgrow the viral events ability to move the needle, then you need to start sponsoring Super Bowls and getting TV commercials and magazine runs, and so that's the layer after that. But just know that as you go up the page rank ladder, SEO changes, marketing changes, everything changes with scale. All right. What's your favorite graph to visualize the results of your SEO work for clients? I'm biased. I'm really fond of the volatility tool because it keeps me honest about the landscape. So that's my current favorite, highly biased answer. Lee?
Well, I'm looking at it, it comes down to, what's the client undo client work, but it's what's the checking account look like, what's the sales numbers look like. That's the magic one. You can get all of the rankings and everything else, but if ultimately somebody's got to buy a product or a service for the client to be happy, and if that's going on and it's growing quite nicely, then you're a hero. Versus if you're just showing all these rankings, but the phone's not ringing, you're a problem.
What about you, Charles? How do you display your progress?
I don't. I just do reams and reams of reports and decks and until I fall asleep. No, no, I'm just teasing. Um, in a large organization, it's a lot harder. Typically what I'll do, my little strategy is that I like to give them a quick win immediately, kind of prove SEO, because there's always that hesitancy that is this actually going to work? Is this guy really know what he's talking about? So if you can give them some quick wins right off the bat, it takes the pressure off. Folks actually start believing you when you say this is how you want to do it. And then honestly, when it comes to enterprise, I'm being a little silly, facetious with the decks and reports, but honestly, that is what happens. You have to come up with a whole, here's what we're going to do, folks, and here's why we're going to do this, and then kind of spell it all out for everybody. And then as you start doing it, then show where you are on the trajectory. Here's where we were going to be. Here's where we are now. Here's where we're still planning on being. That might be a little bit much for a smaller, if you're just dealing with a smaller client. But it's still that same kind of communication state. Keep communicating. Don't. A lot of times folks are afraid to talk to clients because they're afraid to hear bad news. They're afraid to hear the client complain. That's the best way to get an unhappy client or employer, is just to kind of ghost them and not talk to them.
Mm-hmm.
What is the best internal linking strategy or process to follow for a local services website that has multiple local landing pages that need to rank? I think the best architecture to scale with, so qualified answer, to scale with, if your client has 2 keywords and 2 locations and that's all it's ever going to be, then this advice is totally unnecessary. So if you are growing in locations and you are growing in service keywords, you do have to think about scale, because in general, you know, hundreds of pages and thousands of pages doesn't work well for Fred the plumber in map search. Google kind of doesn't allot that kind of allowance for that kind of site. There are exceptions. Those exceptions tend to be publicly traded companies and national franchises, which Fred's Plumbing is not. So you kind of need to develop a strategy based on dozens of pages. And so if you have 80 municipalities in a 15-mile radius, and you have 10 service keywords and you do conjoined pages, that's 800 pages. It's not going to fly. So at that point, you need to think about doing location pages and service pages and doing relationships with links, because that gets it back down to 90, which is dozens of pages. That has a chance of doing well. And what we see in the field when you start investigating lawyers and very competitive markets is that they're doing it this way. They have their locations and their services, they interlink, and they manage to maximize their largest amount of number one rankings for city service with this type of architecture. So if you need to grow those limits, A, it can't all be the homepage, and B, you need to think about site structure. But you only need to do that if they're saying they're going to grow in locations and service keywords. If it's only going to be 5, then there's no need to do any of this. What do you think, Lee?
The answer I've given people before on this one is simple. Go to any top 5, top 10 city in the US, stay out of New York and Los Angeles because those are weird ecosystems, and search for local locksmiths ranking on page 1. There are basically 2 styles of websites that both rank well, and you can just model their page structure, their internal linking structure, and all of that, because you know that it already works, and it works in a very competitive niche in very competitive cities.
All right. Any thoughts, Charles?
I don't do enough local to make me worthy of giving an opinion.
Okay, no
Thank
worries.
you, though.
All right. About anchor text, I want to build backlinks to my exact match domain. I have pages for 300 cities, pages about plumber services. What anchors can I use? I want to use brand city anchors, but due to my exact match domain, I'm afraid to over optimize for my keyword. I see lots of directories already addressing this. So you see Angie's List and Yelp and Avo, and there are plenty of examples that you could probably go and look at and see how they're doing. And so I would do some competitive research on what's an accepted standard. And generally for internal anchors, these are like from, your homepage to your categories, from your categories to your subcategories, from your subcategories to your leaf nodes. Internal anchors are hard to over optimize. Like even in ecom, we do like 100% exact match anchors and the primary navigation that could be hundreds of product categories. And so we get away with it in ecom, probably get away with it as a Yelp directory too. So I would go to search and see what the engine will bear, and odds are it's far more lenient than you think it is. What do you think, Lee?
Well, I just take the last answer that I gave. It'll help you with site structure and internal, but you can also take those same sites that are trying to rank service plus or locksmith plus city, and they'll have 50 or 60 cities or something along those lines, and see what they're doing for their external links. Use a tool like Ahrefs or whatever else to kind of look at their backlink profile and see what they're doing. Just model what the other guys are already doing, and it doesn't have to be in your niche.
All right, let's see. We cannot peer review something we cannot see. Well, Simon White has a point there, but how often does the biologist let you handle the petri dishes? I bet never is the answer. And so science doesn't require that you be allowed to handle the petri dish. Um, and so what science does demand is that you share how it was conducted, how other people can test for themselves and reproduce your results, and that you share the results that you got. Now, that is peer reviewable scientific method. But saying I demand your test keywords is the same thing as saying I demand your petri dishes. And you know what those scientists would say. What do you think, Lee?
Yeah, I agree. I think Simon makes a good point. It's because he's interested in what the outcome. What's the tag? I'm assuming is where he's coming from because Simon's another tester out there, and he's right. Without knowing the tag, I can't go replicate Charles' test on my own to verify them. His finding. But I think the intent here was to look at sort of the testing process and sort of the how it was done and the learnings that could come from that, independent of the specific tag.
Yeah.
But he is correct. I can't go replicate Charles' test right now because I don't know what the tag is, unless I go test all the tags in the HTML spec, which I think you did historically.
Well, I didn't test them all. There
Yeah.
was one I left out.
So I anticipated, I mean, I'm sorry guys, I'll have to drop in a few seconds, but I anticipated just this issue. Like, hey, we want to know the exact tag. And my point was less about, hey, here's the tag I was testing, and more like, this is the procedure. And I wanted to hopefully help demystify the procedure for folks out there, that it's not that big of a deal. And even experts like me mess it up all the time. So it's like, it's not, it's, you learn, and you're constantly learning from the process. And Terry, you made the great point that, there is no failed experiment. If you get a result, then it was a success because you learned something.
Yeah.
And it was a bold tag. I'll tell you guys, it was a bold tag test, and he still screwed it up. That's
And odds are, if you know HTML, you could probably go to the spec on W3 Schools and figure out what tags on this list would be so contentious that Charles wouldn't want to share it. And you could probably get a short list of culprits.
You'll be real disappointed when you find the tag, though, if you learn the tag.
Uh-oh, then I'm probably wrong on my guess.
For any of you who don't regularly test and want to learn how, also learn from this that it's okay to share your testing process with others because you can improve it and maybe give them some ideas on further tests.
Does including sources or having authority links help your site? I'm going to test it. What are your predictions? Well, that's a great test. It hasn't been the sources part, like, citing your sources. I haven't seen recent testing on that, and I think technologically it's something that can be engineered. So it's plausible that someone in the world could be looking for citations and using AI to say what facts from this content are corroborated by the content from these citations. Like, that is a doable feat of engineering in today's world. Now, do I think Google is doing that on all pages? No. But could Google be doing it for top 3 pages and certain keywords that are like your money or your life? Sure, that's within the scale of possibility. Is Google known for being proactive and building such things? No, they're kind of lazy developers that never fix anything. So that would be kind of evidence to the contrary. But does that rule out a test on that? No, I think a test on that is cool. My prediction is that Google is kind of lazy and doesn't really advance things that way. So that's my prediction, as you will discover Google isn't doing it. On authority links, do good links help? I think that one will probably pan out well. I think if you test it 10 times, 7 out of 10 tests will show that authority links are helpful. What do you think, Lee?
Yeah, I'm going to say my guess is no, it won't. But I'm going to tell you there's a couple of things that I would think about in terms of structuring this test. Historically, it used to be a hack to link out to Wikipedia. And then for a while, linking out to Wikipedia actually kind of looked like it was demoting the pages linking out to it because everybody was trying to do it. So if you're going to link out to sources, I would have one set of tests that just linked out to Wikipedia because that's a whole separate thing. A second set that linked out to the authority sites that you I think are relevant for citations for the content that you have. And then I would have a third set because you don't know whether it's linking to an authority or just linking out to a website. I would have a set of pages that linked out to unrelated things. Like I'd link out to Burger King, or something along those lines that had nothing to do with the page, but was, a an authority type website, a high, DA type of website. So you have sort of an equality of it. They're all linking out. And, if they rise, you'll be able to tell, is it the linking out or is it the thing that's being linked to that, is topically similar, topically related.
How do we find a testing group to join, Lee? They're usually paid communities anymore, unless you have your own friend group of testers. So my recommendation is build a friend group of testers. And usually, once you're avid into testing, other groups of testers want to include you because testers are so rare and valuable. So actually doing it and getting a reputation for doing regular testing will get you invites into testing friend groups. But people just wanting to be a fly on the wall is a big problem. So a lot of people show interest but never deliver. And so that's the skepticism you have to overcome. Is we think that you are interested in seeing our tests and you will not be very proactive in doing your own, even though your initial intent is going to swear and promise to the contrary. Your actual results are the issue. So if you can prove your results, then a lot of different groups will want to have you in their groups.
Yeah.
And so just get a reputation for testing, set up a YouTube channel, have 5 episodes. I'll help you promote it. You can talk about your tests. I'll even give you the fame you need if you're testing. That's how rare testers are. But you have to do the testing for me to do the promotion of your tests. And that's how you get into these circles. Any more thoughts on that, Lee?
No, I mean, that was kind of, they are rare, and you find them, that was kind of when you start putting information out there and see who else is putting information out there in a particular space, you can kind of share and compare notes and find out that you're both testing, various things and having those conversations. It's true. I mean, that's actually how Charles and I met, was at the SEO spring training, and we were talking to just a large group, and then we were talking just he and I, and he goes, "Hey, I've been doing a couple of weird tests," and I'm like, "Weird? How weird? Talk to me." And and that's the one thing led to another. So yeah, just get out there and show some results, and testers will find you.
And there are places where you can pay to be a fly on the wall. SEOintel.com is one, formerly SIA. That's Clint Butler's group. They have about approaching 1,000 published tests, something like that. Maybe it's closer to 600 or 700, but in that ballpark. Let's see. Hi guys, I need to establish your EEAT with a hypothetical question. If you have a fine malt whiskey, what is the best mixer to add to it? For me, it would be the big sphere of ice. Because I don't like drinking it warm. Um, that's the mixer I'd use. What about you, Lee?
It's an interesting question because that was not really my space until, when I say until, and this is very small. About a year ago, a friend gave me a very nice bottle of scotch. And then I looked at a little information about how best to enjoy that. And I found out there's a whole realm of stuff like, the large ice cube, or, a drop of water, in a scotch helps release the aroma and the flavors and stuff, like whole bunch of stuff. So what I would tell you is I don't have that expertise, but I know how to Google the shit out of stuff.
Yeah, and I'll be honest, ever since the pandemic, I'm a lightweight. I went from being a regular drinker to almost never drinking. Um, and so yeah, I don't do a lot anymore. I did a lot more in the past. I typically save my drinking for conferences when I'm with friends and talking shop.
Mhm.
Um, by the way, thanks for last week's advice. The promo code SEO Fight Club worked for Magic PR. Much appreciated. Awesome. Um, Madge is the man. I wish he had a $99 option. Yeah, he is pricey. He has what I consider the higher quality press release distribution. Um, there are $99 options out there that work. So if that's your budget and it's that or nothing, then that's okay. There are solutions for that out there. What comes to mind is 38digitalmarket.com. It's not the same. Keep in mind, these are not equivalent outcome press releases, but if you need something that's in the middle, there are in the middle options.
Mhm.
Um, what video AI tools are you guys using right now, and what video AI tools have you heard of others have used with good results? I haven't done video AI yet. I had a prediction very early on that this whole space is going to go as quickly as possible towards you saying, I would like another season of Breaking Bad starring Samuel L. Jackson and Frank Sinatra. And then a few hours later, and $60 shorter, Netflix says your new season is ready. So that's where the world is heading. Are we there yet? No. Right now it's like, can you make a fancy music video, that's abstract and weird? That's where the video AI is at. Um, and I have not used it much myself, but I'm more interested in trying to see where is the world headed. What do you think, Lee?
Yeah, I'm not playing there, and I have some friends who are playing in the space and doing some interesting things. But nothing that I can share publicly on that. So I'm of no help um, in this question.
S. Bain says, laugh out loud. The correct answer is drink it neat, no mixers. Ice is a maybe. Yeah, I do that when I want to slow myself down. So if I add ice, I tend to drink it faster. If I know it's going to be a long wait before the wait staff comes back around, then I'll do it neat because then I drink it more slowly. Um, but yeah, my preference is, where do I enjoy it the most? It's chilled, and if the uh if the whiskey was coming out of the freezer, I wouldn't need the ice. So the only reason I need the ice is that it was a warm bottle sitting on the counter all day long. So that's the thing. Um,
I would just say, show your data and cite your sources. That's all I'm going to say about
yeah,
that.
yeah, exactly. Um, how would you analyze a YouTube SERP, Ted? What tools do you use to analyze for YouTube SEO? I don't. I'm very lazy with my YouTube channel because it produces almost no income for me. The advertising revenue on SEO Fight Club at its best was, $200 a month. And that wasn't even sustainable. And right now I have ads turned off because Google, I guess, I don't want to say they demonetized me, but the advertising revenue became so feeble there's no point of running ads. I was pissing off my viewers and getting nothing for it. So I just turned the ads off. And so, yeah, this is a labor of love. And in the SEO space, I don't think that SEO YouTube channels make a lot of money. Chase had tens of thousands of subscribers, and he typically only made 500, 700 a month when he was doing 3, 4 videos a day. And so I just don't see a point in that. You need to monetize them through other ways. And so I don't do YouTube SEO. YouTube is great for indexing stuff. Throwing a link in the description has, on many occasions, helped get pages indexed.
Yep.
Let's see. Ted, applying ranking factors to weight, staff speed. I'm not sure I understand. Applying ranking factors to weight, staff, speed.
You're saying how fast, when you're having the ice or no ice in your beverage,
Oh, yeah.
The weight staff. So we're looking at ranking factors there.
I was thinking in SEO, and it's like these words don't make sense. But yeah, when you go back to testing the bar. Yeah, exactly. You have to do some optimization so that you have some beverage between wait staff visits. Definitely bar optimization. All right. Well, thank you, everyone. We will see you next week.